Hello, my fellow readers. This is Dark Symphony 777 with another fanfiction review. As always, the link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story, and finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story I am doing a review of is Project Genesis Part 3, Ascension by Darkfire7881. It is a Command and Conquer fanfiction, and I have to say, fun fact, this is actually the second time I recorded. I was like halfway through the first recording, and then they just completely shut down on me. And it's like, again, because for some reason my recording software just randomly does that. But I can now get started on this, and hopefully the recording software doesn't crash again. So, this is the final part of Project Genesis. It is a novelization of Tiberium Wars. So, before I get into the story, I have to say I really liked Tiberium Dawn and Tiberium Sun. I think those are good stories that he's written. I really liked all the nuances and stuff like that. And I don't say this story is all bad. There is some good about it. But this story is far away the weakest of the trilogy. And it's not even close. Like, I did not like the story. And I think that's sad because this story, honest to God, had the potential to be great. It was this close. It was so close to being great. The fact that it fell way short, honestly, is a stab in the heart. So, what is the plot? The plot, this Tiberium Wars takes place 10 years after the events of Tiberium Sun. A large portion of Earth has now turned into designated zones. There are the blue zones, which are incredibly safe, and everyone can kind of just live there and peace and prosperity without fear of Tiberium. There are the yellow zones, which have Tiberium scattered here and there, but they can still be livable. It's just this is kind of where like the poor people live. They can't really exist that much. And then there's the red zones, which are completely terraformed by Tiberium to the point where no one except for maybe mutants can live. It's really like dark and disturbing and all that. Kane is manipulating both Nod and GDI to start up Ascension, which is his big end goal, his big plan. And this is where it gets really off the rails for this story. Here's the thing. This story should not have been a novelization. I said at the end of my review of Tiberium Sun that with the way the story was going in the direction, I was almost expecting Ascension to be a rewrite of Tiberium Wars instead of a novelization. This author it's more or less a full-on novelization of Tiberium Wars. And I think that is actually the worst part of the story. Because so here's the thing with novelization. I think I said this before in like I think Mario and Luigi Bowser, all the way like the beginning of my channel, when I started reviewing fan fictions. When it comes to novelizations, there is a certain really big fit of criteria that needs to be withheld. One, all the big moments have to be in the game. Okay, that makes sense. All the big moments that happen in Tiberium Wars happen in this game, which means, okay, that fulfills this criteria. Another thing is, the more complicated the story is, the more work you have to put in to make it flow endlessly. This is where the story fails at being a novelization, because in Tiberium Dawn and Tiberium Sun, those games' plot lines weren't really complicated because what was the plot of Tiberium Dawn? Okay, the plot of Tiberium Dawn is just a meteor crash lands into Italy, starts spreading starts sprouting Tiberium everywhere. GDI wants to get rid of it because they realize it's dangerous. Nod wants to spread it everywhere. They come into conflict. That's it. There is a lot of flexibility you can do because the only really key moment plot wise that you really needed to withhold was Seth being shot. That's it. With everything else, you can literally just freeball it. With Tiberium Sun, it's basically 30 years after Tiberium Dawn. Half the world's covered in Tiberium, and Nod just regains power, and they just want to start. They just want to start shit again, and them and GDI just fight. Granted, again, there's a lot more complexity with Kane and also adding Cabal in the whole deal. But more or less, it's just they just want to fight again. Like that's there's not much, which gave more flexibility for the author to kind of just add more, like add certain stuff, especially since he can freeball like any specific scene now, because there's not really any key moments besides Kane showing up and saying Kane lives, which does happen at the beginning of that story. That's really it. So outside of that, you gotta just freeball it again. But with Tiberian Wars, it's such a different beast because Tiberian Wars is a much more complicated story with with literally manipulating everyone, with like the politics of GDI, with the politics of Nod, with Killian Qatar, and also Alexa Novax and the Kane's Wrath. Also, which doesn't exist in this game, Alexa and Kane's Wrath more or less just don't happen here. Uh, like there's the explosion of Sarajevo, there's a screen invasion, there is the fact that one of the towers need to be complete for Kane's plan to work. There's also this very, very mini minor because this is such a much more complicated game than Dawn and Sun, because you also have like optional missions. You have like the terraforming, you have like certain missions like options, you have the intel, you have characters mid talking to you in the game, like they send like messages or like extra objectives and stuff like that. So this game has a much more involved story that needed to be taken into account. And this is where this story as a novelization failed, because it didn't properly, not only did it, while it tried to properly address this, it did it in a way that caused the story to kind of stutter and kind of start and stop in the same format that worked in Dawn and Sun, because the chapter format operated on the assumption that each chapter is like an actual mission from the game, and it only bridges that specific mission. It worked in Dawn and Sun because of the whole fragmented nature of the whole thing. Because it's like, okay, there wasn't really much depth to the story, so you gotta free ball this. You can just gotta give off with this. But with Wars being a more involved plot and a more complicated plot, this kind of structure did not just could not really work and sustain itself, at least in my opinion. And it slowly collapsed in itself to try and keep everything coherent, but it literally couldn't keep the story itself connected because of the fragmented nature of the entire story. And it honestly suffered in the long run. Like I just stopped caring about the story as it went along, because the flaws just kept popping up more and more as it happened, and it became so unbearable at the end. Especially once the screen showed up, the author started to incorporate Tiberian, like elements of Tiberian Twilight into it, and I must say, no, just no. Let's just get this out of the way. Tiberian Twilight, the final game in the Tiberian storyline. Everyone hates it. Uh, the last night, because I'm actually recording this on January 30th, January 29th, I decided to watch the Tiberian Twilight cutscenes, because I was like, okay, how bad could this game be if like the entire community basically said this game does not exist. Uh, and I saw the cutscene, and it's so bad. It is so horribly written. Granted, it's not the worst written game I've seen, but it's up there. Let's talk about the big thing. Kane. Kane. Why? Why incorporate the whole Kane is an alien into your story? Because a lot of people didn't really like the retcons to Kane, apparently. Because I even checked the TV Tropes page. Even the TV Tropes page is just making fun of this. It's just dunking on this story and of this game. And a lot of people just really didn't like the retcons of like turning Kane into an alien and just having him want to go home. Like, oh, my big plan of this story is just go. I want to go home. I'm homesick. At least I will give the author credit because in this story near the end, uh, the character Malik, who is the commander of the Nod Forces in this game, basically calls Kane out for essentially being like a selfish asshole. Okay, over Kane. Yes, you're telling me. Yes, you started 3 world wars. Yes, terraformed the Earth almost to like an incredibly dangerous degree. Yes, killed millions upon billions. Yes, because you're homesick. Yeah, you're sick in the head, man. Yeah, of course I am. Okay, what happens if I kill you? Then I'll just come back to life and kill you. Touche. Okay, we'll help you, but you go home and you never come back. Like, all right. It's like I at least give the author credit for going. Oh, I'm literally just going to completely call out Kane for what is essentially a dumbass plan. And but still, it just reeks of wanting to end this story because the author desperately didn't want to do Tiberian Twilight, so it's like I got to end this now, so I got to incorporate like the whole Kane's wanting to go home into the story somehow. Let's just have him go home. Let's have Nod, like the Lot Commander, call him out, call it like, which is honestly a good idea. And then kind of just goes home, and then like the Earth starts to recover. But then the something strange happens at the end. Two things. One, where is it? What is this? What is this? Because at the end of Tiberian Wars, they have a massive sequel hook with the Skrin because the invasion of the Skrin, that wasn't an invasion, that was an excavation crew. That was literally just they're just going there because they're like, oh, okay, so the people aren't going to be fighting. Okay, so this planet's now ripe. We just harvest our Ichthor or Tiberium for like our fuel because they're like addicts to the thing. And it's like, oh no, they fought back. We didn't expect that. And he basically goes to like the overlords, like, all right, invasion time. Oh, now we get to see an invasion, which was supposed to be the whole point of Tiberian Twilight with the invasion. No, because the whole game because the whole game wanted to be edgy and wanted to end things. They got rid of the Skirin unnecessarily because all 4 games are like written by different writing crews. It's like, oh, they just okay. So you left us with so you end it with the same sequel hook as Tiberian Wars for no reason other than you can. Okay, Overlord. Yes, Kane's not on the planet anymore. Oh shit. Oh shit. and then you also have the GDI, the hints of the GDI Civil War, which was a big plot line in Tiberian Twilight. So why would you? I understand this because the whole storyline you're trying to establish with Tiberian Wars, but again, why? Why would you heavily hint at possibly doing Twilight? We know you're not going to do Twilight, but you hint at it so heavily. Unless you're going to do like an original story with like Malik and like Nod and GDI kind of having a team up to take down the Skrin, because now it's like, okay, now the Skrin are like legitimately mad, and now we need to actually take them down, which means now we need to work with them, and you just and I like, I don't know, probably Kane and John Lancaster like doing something behind the scenes, like it's like, would you stop killing me? It's like, no, I gotta be the hero. It's like, you keep stabbing me in the heart with like a stick. No, I gotta kill you. It's like, I'm just gonna keep coming back to life. Stop it. Stop it. I don't know. There's something you could probably do, but it's so stupid if you're not gonna follow up on it. It's just unnecessary. Why this is here? I can understand the GDI Civil War thing. It's just, but this, why? Like, this story, it's so painful. Like, I don't know. I just don't want to talk about. I will say, on the flip side, like ending the plot thing, I will say on the flip side, this story feels the most like Command and Conquer. There are entire chapters which focus on Malik and Lancaster commanding their troops and like reacting to different situations and like the whole aspect of it. It feels like the most realistic, the closest thing we can to actually depicting Command and Conquer. And even depicts like what, chapter 13. This is this chapter, right? Let's see, where is it? I'm trying to see. Yeah, chapter 13, like depicting Croatia in like the most bullshit way possible. It's like, honestly, fuck Croatia. That level was like so poorly designed. I don't know what he was thinking when they designed Croatia. But it feels the most like a Command and Conquer story. And there's even like lots of winks and nods. There's lots of details that you like only Command and Conquer fans would be understanding. But it's like, it wouldn't go over the heads of people who don't play the game. It really keeps up that consistent. You know if you know, but if you don't know, you'll probably know sooner or later. It is a perfect representation of like how to incorporate all the gameplay elements of Command and Conquer into a story. That deserves credit. It's not perfect, but I think it's really well handled. The characters. So you have 4 characters. You have John Lancaster returning from Tiberian Sun, Krastin Malik, Autumn Burke, and Zemelek, who is also returning from Tiberian Sun. I'll talk about Zemelek when I talk to Zemelek. Let's start with Autumn Burke. I don't care about this character. I think she is such a poorly written character. It's not even funny. So what's the problem with Autumn Burke? Well, she has a nice idea. Usually, in the previous 2 stories, the soldiers were basically like foot troops. Like, you had McCoy, who was basically like a greenhorn and who was just joining the troop, and then you had Lancaster, who was also an understudy, like, and then slowly becoming the leader he's going to be in this story. In this story, you have Autumn Burke, who's basically already a commander of a troop. She's basically the leader of a small troop, and she's trying to be the team mom of the whole group. The problem is, one, she is completely overshadowed by everyone. She's overshadowed at the beginning by Havoc, who shows up for like 2 chapters before he dies, like the most boss way possible. He's overshadowed by Lancaster. He's overshadowed by Malik. I mean, she's even overshadowed by Zemelek. And Zemelek's not a great character too, but at least Zemelek has like a decent character arc. What is Autumn Burke's character arc? Nothing. She is such a one-dimensional, flat character whose only character trait is basically a gag from Snapcube.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot. I'll be back.
She has quite literally nothing else for her besides constantly mentioning, I miss my wife. I'm worried about my wife. I want my wife. I want to eat out my wife. No, probably not that one. That probably not the last one. I was like, why? Like you can't do nothing else to her besides just worried about her wife. Yeah, it's realistic, but it doesn't make a good character. That's all you give her. Especially since, I don't know, one, Havoc was right there. Two, a massive inconsistent issue. I think it was this chapter, right? Let's see. Let's go to the end of this chapter, right? No, not this. Yeah, right here, where the story kind of implies that Burke dies, like due to we'll talk about Lancaster when we talk about Lancaster, due to like a certain event that he does, and then it's like, oh, like it's implied that, and then like at the last chapter, where is it? No, where is it? Right, yeah, right here, and then she just hold on. I actually was checking to see if the mouse cursor was showing on screen. Yeah, and then it shows this. So she died in the previous chapter, and then she's just randomly alive in this chapter. Huh? Huh? Make it make sense. Like she doesn't like again. I mean, her being like a team mom and being like an actual leader of a small troop of soldiers, that's at least different enough. But the fact that she has one character trait, which is missing her wife, and is such a flat character that I just don't care about her. There's nothing about her character that's interesting to me. I just nothing about her. At least even Tabak from Sun is better than her. At least Tabak had a character arc. As kind of badly it was, at least he had something. At least he had something to him to at least somewhat care about him. There's just nothing. She's just an empty charisma vacuum. Then you have Zemlik, who was actually introduced in Tiberium Sun. He was actually a very veritable greenhorn in that game. He kind of showed in that story. He shows it near the end, where nobody really likes him because he's part of like a massive group of rookies, and apparently because of like they're like mid fight and they say no, none of the 7th division is like, we really don't want to deal with a bunch of rookies, but like, and none of the other members really like the guy, like him, and Zemlik's kind of like dislike that he's like a very go getter. He's like a very go getter in that story. He's like, I want to kill some naughties. Let's go. He's like like an excitable puppy. Like he's even talking like in video games. He's like, I got my first kill. Yes, yes. And then he kind of starts like kind of calming down once he like kind of gets over the high of it. And he kind of gets to know at least Lancaster and Link, and him and Lancaster kind of at least get like a little rapport, not too deep. And then comes the Firestorm expansion where he gets hit at the end, and he and brother and Grand Confessor Marcion basically grabs him. Was like, we're gonna take him to the apothecaries to kind of heal him, but instead Marcion actually kidnaps him and a bunch of other troops to brainwash. And so in this story, he's like 10 years older, and he's been brainwashed, like worked, like surgically worked on to believe he's like been a Brotherhood of a Nod member for like his whole life. But as the story goes on, Zemlik starts to actually have flashbacks to like the brainwashing actually starts to wear off, and he's like now he's like more confused, but he still like cares about his little troop that happens, which is like Rourke and Angelic and Jormungandr. Seriously, one of his friends is named Jormungandr. Like, how the fuck no, better yet, no, I'm not even gonna blame the author on this. I'm gonna say, why the fuck would anyone name their kid Jormungandr? Like, they know what Jormungandr is, right? Like, Jormungandr, the world serpent, the serpent that is like so massively big and it can circle around the earth and bite its own tail, who kills Thor to start Ragnarok. Who names their kid that? I don't. Then again, we have Elon Musk, who named his kid. I'm not even gonna say that name. I'm not even gonna say it. Point is, Zemlik, during the Battle of Sarajevo, Zemlik's brainwashing finally washed away. He remembers he was part of GTI. His leader realizes, oh, you're brainwashed now. All right, time to put you down. And and then the guy dies, and Yorm and all of them. They heard the whole thing. They killed the guy. It's like, were you really part of GDI? It's like, yeah, I was brainwashed. It's like, all right, we won't kill you, but we'll basically tell you you can either stay with us or you can leave. We won't kill you if you leave because we at least owe you that much because you've been with us for that. So it's like we won't kill you right now, but if you come in, we might kill you in the future. Like, but then Zemlik's like, no, I want to stay with Nod, not because he believes in Nod's ideology and stuff like that, but because he's grown to actually care about the other guys so much. He's like, I just want to stick with you as family. Like, and I thought that's actually nice touching, in a very twisted way. I think it is a nice capstone to his character because you actually see them kind of get to know. He actually starts to care about them. It's kind of flawed because we're not given enough time to kind of get to know the dynamic because like this is kind of a problem with both Autumn and Zemlik. They don't show up a lot because large portions of the story is taken up by Malik and Lancaster to the point where Autumn and Zemlik just kind of are just massively irrelevant. It's like I think the author just took one look at the story. Like, I kind of have to have these two kind of show up, and it's like I need to have someone be like on the ground. So it's like kind of just dump these. So he just kind of picked these two. It's like here you go. It's like so he was kind of rocking a hard place. I don't really blame him. I don't hate at least unlike Autumn, I don't hate Zemlik's character. Even at the end where he dies, he gets killed by Autumn and all his troops. And he instead of like raging, he's in peace because his friend, his family is now dead. Like they all died around the same time. But he's in peace. Like he can go wherever they are and just kind of go into afterlife or something like that with them. I think it's kind of touching how it ends. But then we get Malik and Lancaster, and unlike Zemlik and Autumn, which weren't relevant, Malik and Lancaster are legitimately really well written characters, especially Lancaster. But I'll talk about Malik first. I like the idea of the whole thematic idea of not everyone in Nod is evil and not everyone in GDI is good because absolute power corrupt absolutely. Malik is not truly an evil person. He's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. Like the quote Wreck-It Ralph. He has moments of kindness, and he's actually the more conservative general, like compared to every other commander, not in the previous Slavic and Gabriel, who's more gung ho, more fanatical and stuff like that. To they're not only not as a system, but as an ideology is that dictates their actions. We will just keep fighting and die. Malik is very conservative with troops. He actually not only cares about the troops, but also about the random people. There is a part where he's in Rio de Janeiro, and he's looking around because they have a mission to kind of protect the facility, and he's stationed there. He's trying to remember back when he did the Rio insurrection, which is in this first story, right here. And it's revealed that he believes in the idea behind Nod, but not so much the ideology that comes with it, the religious ideology. And so in this part, Malik is looking at the downtrodden people of Rio, and they basically his commander Radic is telling him we got to go to the facility. It's and he basically turns to him and is like, how much food do we have? How much food and water do we have? And it's we got plenty. It's I basically goes, I want you to give it to these people. They need it. They need it more than us. And even his own command, his second in command, I was calling him out on this. Why the fuck are you doing this? It's no, I want that. They need it more than we do. It's but we're gonna starve. It's all right. So what are we supposed to do? It's because we're not leaving without giving them food and water. It really shows that Malik, despite all his flaws, because he's still a somewhat a fanatic, but he's one of those characters what I would call an actual activist. activist, like an actual activist. Like there's all like nowadays, like 2025, we have like some like Just Stop Oil and stuff like that. They're basically what I call slacktivists. Basically, in my opinion, an activist is not only people who like believe in this stuff, but are willing to actually go ahead and commit to this. Like they're like if you see like a vegan or a vegetarian, like they're not being a dipshit. And it's like, well, don't kill, like don't do this. But if they're actually like if it's like actively a vegan, it's like okay, as long as you're not a dick about it, at least accept that you're and respect the fact that you're going through with your plan. Like meanwhile, you have like a lot of vegans who are like, if you eat any animals, you're crazy, and you're a horrible person. Instead of like, okay, maybe you this or maybe that, or even like Just Stop Oil, because they're like they constantly complain like we have to end all oil and they destroy all this stuff. But one, they usually tend to like come in like cars and drives and vehicles that guess what use up a lot of oil. Two, their main methods of annoying people is to block intersections and highways where there's a lot of cars, which will then cause a lot of oil to build up more, which will cause road deadlock, which burns more oil. Meaning they're not really committing to the cause. They're being hypocrites. Meanwhile, Moloch, he not only firmly believes in like the idea, he's actually embracing, like he actually understands like what Nod is, and he's willing to like go through with it. Like these people need help. Nod is like a group that is supposed to help the downtrodden and help him. What does he do? He helps the downtrodden and run him. Like even if it causes him to suffer or his troop to suffer, these people are suffering more. So we're gonna help these people. It humanizes Malik and actually makes him more relatable, and even more respectable to like even Just Stop Oil. That's right. I said a fictional character is more respectable than fucking Just Stop Oil. Shut up. I said it. That's what I believe in. It makes Moloch such a more human character, a more three-dimensional character than like Slavic or Gabriel, who not only like deeply fanatical as well as Moloch, but also are deeply ideological that they'll be hypocrites themselves. Like they don't actually believe in like Cain. Like Gabriel eventually was eventually revealed to like actually be as big a hypocrite as like Slavic was, although that comes near the end. But Malik, he actually doesn't. He's not really religious. He apparently doesn't really follow the religious stuff. He just nod helps the small help like the people like that are under GDI's boot. So I want to help them, and that's why he's fighting. And that makes Malik such a more interesting character. I really like Malik. I think, especially like near the end where like the Battle of Sarajevo happens, and he starts doubting. He actually starts doubting Kane. Like near the end, he gets a message from Killian Qatar, and he basically like supposed to talk to her. Like, okay, come with me. And then she takes him to like a little like her office, and she basically turns to him and like they both sit down. It's like, I know you're coming to kill me. It's like, and he's just completely caught off guard. It's like, what? But it's like, I know you're coming. I know you're supposed to kill me, but please listen to what I have to say. And instead of like going like the bat for Kane, he's like he actually listens to her. And like even when, especially when she calls us like, I know you're not religious. I know you're, and I know if anyone in Nod who will listen to me, I know it will be you. And he's like, and once he realizes that that okay, she knows what she's kind of making some sense. He's like, he actually listens to her. It's the details like that make Mallet such an interesting character, especially since he's the one who calls out Kane. Like when Kane and Radek come in, and Kane's like completely pissed, like, why didn't you kill her yet? It's like, and he's like, and Kane notices that Malik actually listened to her. Radek just basically kills Killian, and then Malik immediately kills Radek. And he's like, it's like, we're gonna talk. It's like, we're not going until I get some fucking answers. Are you human? And like he actually manages, and he does the impossible and actually manages to pull one over on Kane. It's honestly such a badass moment in the context of the story that it's legitimately really frightening. But even then, Moloch doesn't compare to Lancaster. And I had to clap for what you did with Lancaster. What a fucking character. What a balls to the walls cautionary tale of what the idea of branching out from underneath your family shadow can do to the psyche of a person. Lancaster is a fun, like, as much as I like Malik, Lancaster is on another fucking level. He is quite honestly an amazing character. And I think he is honestly no shot the best part of the story. He is such a well written character that is like just he it blows everything not only from this story but the previous two stories out of the water. I didn't want to talk about Lancaster much in Sun because I had a feeling he was going to come back here. I got the confirmation from the author in my review of that story that he was coming back here, so I was like, all right. And this is where we're going to talk about him. In Tiberium Sun, Lancaster was basically just a normal guy. But he had a very veritable chip on his shoulder because everyone kept comparing himself to his father, and he didn't like that. He over the course of the story, when he started like in Sun, where he started assuming more command and all that, he was trying to keep himself in the game, but he still had that massive chip because he kept bringing up in his mind, he kept bringing up his father, like what would my father do, what would Mark do, especially when Mark kind of shows up at the end of Tiberian Sun to kind of like a McNeil with taking down Kane. It show And even then you could see like the ideology between McNeil and Mark as well as John throughout the story in this story. Like McNeil and like Mark Lancaster, he was very gung ho as a commander, but he actually cared about his troops and was not only was willing to make the sacrifices needed, but was also very kind to his command. He legitimately respected his command. Meanwhile, you got McNeil, who was very much of a glory hog, but it was more like it's more I want to stop Kane because they're just and Nod because they're just very crooked and stuff like that. So I was like, but he also understood that the sacrifices were needed, and he knew that and he knew when to back away when it was necessary. Like especially near like the final battle, like he pushed him as like when people were like calling him as like we don't really have a choice because no one else is coming, so we gotta hope that something we gotta at least hold out. Like even like he wouldn't go full Unga Munga, like, but he would push his troops, but with understanding that with logic that would at least make sense in the story. John, on the other hand, was while at the beginning of Ascension, he still he was a slightly more kinder person, but he still had that chip on the shoulder because he still had that legacy of his father to live behind, and he resented it. He absolutely was disgusted by possibly still everyone comparing him to like the guy who stopped Nod 50 years ago, and they're still kind of comparing him. It's like, and how it transformed him throughout the story because now he's a commander. Now he has his own troops and all that, and how he transformed from like like a somewhat good natured guy to someone who is so desperate to forge his own legacy, his own to step out of his to to step out of his father's shadows like so hard he becomes as horrible and like as corrupt as Kane. Like that's even shocking. Like the fact that the it Lancaster's like a perfect cautionary tale. Like what like becoming so obsessed with getting your own legacy that you become worse than the people you're trying to beat you're trying to like step out of your own shadow, like his father or more McNeil, and he's just so desperate for that. is that he starts to kill innocent people. He starts to his logic starts to fail, and he makes bad decisions because not only because of like Kane's mechanizations, he blows up like the GDI command in space, the Philadelphia, and he install and because of like everything that happens, uh the corrupt sleazebag Redmond Boyle assumes command, and he starts speaking in Lancaster's ear, and he goes, I can make you forge your own destiny. I can help you win Kane, and you could be the hero, and I can parade you around, and you could have all the fans, all and people talking about not talking about Mark Lancaster, but John Lancaster, and it gets in his head, and he starts to become more and more corrupt to the point where we'll talk about that moment when we got to talk about it, and it and like the end where where like he meets the leader of the mutants, Remus, who's also from Tiberian Sun. He basically tells John, it's like you have a 50-50 chance. Either all center on you. Either you end the world and kill everyone, or you save the world. 50-50? Yeah. And he risks the lives of so many people. It's so dangerous that it's quite honestly scary, like how well written Lancaster is in this story. I Which kind of makes me sad is like he's not a perfect character, because again, going back to the problem is we don't really see the corruption slowly. It's just kind of a sudden thing. Like he the moment Redmond Boyle, he just he just is corrupted now, and it's like really needed more time to like the slow burn over it. But what we have at Lancaster is still good. I'm not. He's still an amazing character. I have no real problems with him besides the fact that he doesn't. It's just they're needing more time for like this, like the corruption to kind of seep in to kind of get it. It's just, I think it's too sudden in my opinion. Grammar, I think it's fine. Besides like the same errors from the other stories where like two words are like smushed. This gotta happen, but it's like it's not really that frequent in the story, so I don't mind it. Pacing and structure, I think the pacing is good. I think the story structure is good. I think everything about it is good, except for plot, which leads me into what I recommend this story. As much as I would want to, because I do think the story has a lot going for it. I can't recommend it such because of how bungled a novelization is. And again, I'm not gonna blame the author for getting this, because novelizations are really really difficult. And I said it before, I'll say it again. Novelizations are pretty much the hardest type of story you can make. So having a novelization that fails, it's not surprising. I'm not gonna blame the author, because honestly, I think the author tried his best with trying to incorporate the structure of Tiberian Wars. It really just didn't work out. I'm not. It's. I wouldn't blame this on the author. I think he did as well as he could have, but it didn't work out in this case. It worked in Dawn and Sun's case, but not so much here. What would be my favorite part? chapter 22. Where is it? The end, right here, right around this area. Right around here, and about the beginning of chapter 23. So for context, this is like near the end of the story, and also near the end of the Skuran invasion. They are insulting what they see as the control nod, the thing that controls all the Skrin and will basically shut them down. If they destroy this, the Skrin is gone. Like they're just dealt with. John is so desperate because they're trying to get rid of this. They have the advantage. Then the Skrin create their super weapon, which is a portable black hole. Decimates his forces. Everyone in the command is telling him, we need to back out. We need to come out. We need to get the troops out. We gotta wait for the reinforcements that are coming from the other side. They gotta do it. John at this point is desperate. He is quite honestly a lunatic at this point. He's gone off the deep end. And he's desperate, like, no, we have to push. We have to end this now. I want my legacy. And everyone's just kind of pressuring him to back away. And he's just refusing. And even like his second in command, she pulls a gun on him. Was like, no, I will not let you kill innocents for your insane glory. What happened to you, John? And another commander basically shoots her hand, and basically now she doesn't really have a hand anymore, and she gets locked away. And he's desperate, and he's like, everyone now pushes, and then he gets a message from his commander, Granger. He's like, you're to back out immediately. He's like, no, I gotta keep my legacy. This is not about legacy. This is not about pride. This is about making sure the job is done. You need to let the other guy do the job because now their forces are weakened and they'll be able to do it. I gotta do it. And then Redmond Boyle basically hijacks the call. It's like, John, no, you need that. Granger's not telling you everything. We got a liquid Tiberium bomb that will end the war. It's like, no, that's experimental and we're not touching that. You didn't even do it. What are you even doing? It's like, don't you want to be a hero, John? Don't you want everyone to chant your name and parade you around? All the luxuries and goods. And then comes the killing bro. Redmond Boyle says, what would you do? And Granger puts his foot in his mouth and goes, what would your father do? And hearing that, John loses it. And he's like, I know what I would do. And he launches the Tiberium bomb. And it destroys millions. It kills millions. Including, right here, his brother. Kills his brother's wife, and his brother's kid. And it was such a shock. And even Kane like caught off guard. Like they actually, this wasn't what I predicted. Oh shit. Oh. And even Kane's like, even like Kane is like caught off, like legitimately caught off guard by this. And then we get to the next chapter where we have the remnants of the incident. John is like looking out the window, and his ship's AI is like behind him, reading like all the people who have died, and listing them. And then Eva gets to his family's deaths, and he's like looking out, and then he breaks down and loses it, and just he laughs and he cries. He realizes what he did. Like he didn't create his own legacy. He ruined not only his legacy but his family's legacy. He destroyed it and dispersed it, and it broke him. It destroyed him. And I think the whole buildup, the whole execution of stuff was hauntingly beautiful and sums up like the cautionary tale of John Lancaster. Just everything about that is just so haunting and so beautiful in like such a disturbing way. Like how well written it's like that is legitimate kudos on that story. Like I can't say anything more about that. But that would be my favorite part. It's just a hauntingly disturbing and dark part. But that's why it's so good. Like So yeah, that would be my favorite part. What would I do to change it? There's a couple things I would do to change. First off, you want to keep the GDI so fine. Keep that in. This needs to go. Just delete this. If you're not gonna follow up on this, delete it. Doesn't need to be here. Second off, let's talk about what I think this story really needed. It needed to become a rewrite. What I would suggest is you keep the same structure, but this story needs more attached to it. I think it needed to be a rewrite. It can still work as a novelization. It really needs more parts away from. I think that's honestly what this needs. It needs a large portion of its story away from the combat to give time to give us more of this world as it is. Give us more of Zemelik and Autumn away from the war, like interacting with like other people, or like either. I think in this case, it would benefit them to interact more with like the commanders, like Autumn interacting with Lancaster, and even her getting like disgusted. Or hell, even with like Autumn, you have Havoc there. Why not Havoc sees the potential of on Autumn and said, "How would you like to be a commando?" It's like, really? Yeah. And even like and even Havoc like joins like even Havoc like joins like Autumn's troop like over time, like giving her like and even like writing like original missions, like to kind of give Autumn like commando training, like all this stuff. And like you can still have Havoc die, like oh when the screen ends, he dies. He can die then. And even like when Zemlik goes, like seeing like the kindness of Mal, like instead of like randomly having his brainwashing fall off, he sees the kindness of Malik, and he sees like Malik actually doing like actual work, like activist work, like showing like how much he cares. Like that can wear off the brainwashing, and like everyone starts to get worried, and even Malik gets worried. He's like, and he like sees, and he even sees Zemlik as like somewhat like him, like a go-getter, like wants to try and fix it. Like you can easily de-radicalization. Like you can have that angle to work with. But more importantly, have Lancaster and Malik be off the battlefield all the time. So that way they're interacting with people. They're interacting with the people like with normal people. Like even expanding upon like Athena Miles' relationship with Lancaster. Like she starts to fall in love with him, and then she stops falling in love with him because she sees how glory seeking he's become and wants to and still wants to be his friend now and trying to help her. And then of course she gets killed by Kane at the end. Or like Mal like interacting with random people, like show like and even doing like the job or not. I think there was so much potential in that's honestly the in like how the story was structured and how everything was laid out. The story was so close to being good. I really, if it wasn't for the actual plot being like a jumbled mess and the structure of it, it really would have been honestly the best of the three. Like it came so close. Like I was split on whether or not to recommend it because I like John, I liked Malik, I kind of like Zemlik. I don't like Autumn, but there's so many bad decisions I can't recommend it. Like unless you're like a hardcore Command and Conquer fan, I wouldn't recommend the story. It just it has so many flaws to it, but they're flaws that are easily fixable. Just add more. Give them time away from the flint lines. So show Boyle slowly corrupting Lancaster. Like actually have him parade in front of the troops and have him soak up the legacy. Like I'm like, oh, I can get used to this. I can get used to this glory, this thing, and like there's so much you can do with specifically this world that it's kind of a shame that you stuck so rigidly to a novelization format. This is why I say the worst part about the story is that it's a novelization because by sticking so rigidly to the structure to how Command and Conquer Tiberium Wars play, the story shot itself in the foot by just having to stick to the formula. And I think that's just it's so sad. It's it's so I don't really know what else to say. Uh, so yeah, that is the finale of Project Genesis. What a way to go out! I don't even hate this story. I'm just more disappointed in this story because it was so close to being good. That's like I said, that's the bad part. It was so close. It was this close to being amazing, and just ah, oh, I hate stories like this because it's just because you can see the potential in them, but they just ah. But yeah, that is Project Genesis Ascension. This is I don't really have anything more to say about this story. This has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.